So what you have up on the screen here is a look at our agenda for the presentation. We're going to start out with a little bit of background on ESA's Target Trends surveys, kind of the origin and purpose of the survey. I want to talk a little bit about some of the drivers of physical security IT solution convergence, provide a few industry examples of this convergence taking place, and then the meat of the presentation will be the survey results. And then I'll just to be provocative at the end, I'll present a little vision of an integrated security IT play for retail that maybe will stimulate some Q&A. We will go through that, and then Rick Sheets has some questions for you all from an ESA perspective to help the association understand how they can be helpful for you as you try to make decisions about participating in the convergence of IT and physical security. So that's our plan for today, and hopefully we'll have no more technical difficulties. Let's move on to the next slide, Shannon. Okay, so over the last couple of years, there's been a kind of a research regime that's been instituted at ESA, semi-annual major studies. The study that we do at the end of the year that is presented for the first time at the ESA Leadership Summit in the first quarter of the following year is called the Megatrends Survey. And Megatrends takes a broad look at product technology and applications trends, and as well as at operational trends among security integration companies. And so we get a sense for rate of growth and involvement in a wide variety of product categories, technology areas, and applications. And that really provides us with some cues on where to go with the Target Trends Survey, which follows in a mid-year time frame in terms of its fielding, and is released for the first time at ESX. So the Target Trends, we find something in Megatrends that looks interesting, and we study it more deeply with Target Trends. Last year, what came up to be of high interest and where there seemed to be a lot of activity and movement was in the residential area, and particularly in interactive services, home automation, et cetera. The Target Trends Survey for last year, fielded in May, actually consisted of both a consumer and a trade piece, and it really dug in on what the level of involvement of members was in, beyond the alarm side of things in the residential category, and where they were headed over the next couple of years. This year, when we looked at Megatrends, we saw commercial IT popping up as something that seemed to be of greater interest and higher activity involvement. And we really wanted to drill down for a bunch of reasons, one of which was we weren't sure that what we were seeing in the Megatrends survey was a misreading of questions where integrators were thinking of network-based technologies and IP as it applies to physical security devices like video surveillance cameras and access control, or were they really thinking of commercial IT solutions? So we wanted to drill down on that with our survey, and that just gives you a little bit of the background on how we got to this specific intent for the Target Trends Survey in 2012. Can you move on, Shannon? So, in addition to having these cues from the research, there's just some changes and developments we've been observing in the market that are potential drivers. This is kind of one of the theses behind this idea of greater involvement in IT among physical security integrators. So, first of all, technology changes and developments are a key driver. We know that networking-based architectures and internet protocol, IP, are increasingly common core technologies for physical security products. This is most obvious in categories like video surveillance, but also a strong component of access control today, and increasingly alarms are headed towards those architectures as well. So with core security products requiring at least a basic level of IT networking and IP technology proficiency or technical proficiency, security integrators over the last 3-4 years have been investing in that. Now that investment could be anything from taking a half-day or a full-day session at a distributor to getting Cisco certified or A+ certified through CompTIA. We do know that investments there, and we actually know that from the Megatrend survey, have been going on the last 2 or 3 years. At the same time that these trends have been happening on the security side of things, the information technology VAR, value-added reseller, or systems integrator, they have been getting into physical security. They've taken advantage of the fact that categories like video surveillance and access control are IP-based, network-based, and they have that technical proficiency, and they are starting to offer that as part of their suite of services and products to their commercial customer base, and particularly to the small and medium-sized business, SMB. That acronym stands for small and medium-sized businesses. And particularly in that realm, where you're talking about a company that's 15 to 50 employees, even as high as 75 employees, you don't have a security director or a security manager on staff. It's the, the VP of administration who is handling all of the different technology needs of that company, and they don't want 3 different technology solution providers if they don't have to. If they can get all of their technology needs serviced from a single provider, that's greatly preferred in terms of the amount of hassle for them, and they're, there's the potential for cost savings there as well. So many of the small and medium-sized businesses looking for a single solution provider have started to turn to that IT VAR and systems integrator who does not only the security piece but can do IT, whether that's back office, tending their network, to everything from that to point of sale sort of systems in retail. So the net result is you have both a carrot and stick effect driving the security integrators into IT, it should read, rather than IP. So as a security integrator, you've made these investments in IT and IP tech proficiency. How about a way to monetize that above and beyond just being efficient and state-of-the-art with your security products? So there's that carrot opportunity of additional revenues, and then the stick is, if I don't start to offer some of these IT solutions, I may be losing business to the IT VAR or systems integrator, especially in that small and medium-sized business category, which is a real key target and lifeblood for many, many independent integrators out there. So that's kind of a run through some of the drivers and some observations behind what may be, again, driving this security IT convergence. Shannon, can you move us along? So now, Shannon, you've got control of the screen, so I don't know whether you can hop to some of these websites for a look. Okay, I've been offered the screen. Let's see how that goes. Am I on the screen at this point? Let's see.
You are.
Okay. So probably the poster child for security IT convergence is interface security systems. I want to say it was 3 or 4 years ago that they purchased a big IT VAR and systems integrator, and this is their home page. And you can see many references to IT and network services here, VoIP, digital phone, digital voice is part of their offering, I think both on the commercial and residential side of things. If you look at the retail side of the retail solutions, you see PCI compliance. So they have a whole suite of IT products that are about credit card processing for retailers and securing those transactions, securing the data associated with those transactions. We know that they're reselling network connections in addition to some of these network services to retailers. There's a real value for some of the large retail chains for them to both manage the bandwidth and not only how security is running on that bandwidth through the wide area network, but also the IT application. So Interface is clearly in this space in a strong way, and it's a company that's experienced strong growth over the last 2 or 3 years despite the recession. This is Morse Communications, which is an ESA member in Florida. Now, I think their roots are more in the IT arena, but you can see their suite of offerings here, VoIP, a lot of network infrastructure and network monitoring. They've got the security piece in terms of both video surveillance, access control, and they have alarms, unified communications, and infrastructure. So here's an integrated player that comes from the IT side of things but is offering the security side of things. Here we are with Vector Security, who announced in January of this year a strategic relationship with a company called SpaceNet. So rather than acquire an IT VAR systems integrator like Interface did, Vector took the route of having a formal strategic alliance with a player, and they're configuring services, integrated IT and security services in much the same way Interface is, with a slightly different corporate structure for doing so. And here's a look at SpaceNet, and if you look at the Vector release in detail, you'll see a lot of the way this is being deployed is with specific attention to the retail market. And here's a look at the specific IT and network services that SpaceNet offers on the retail side of things. And if you went back to that Interface page, you'd see a lot of commonality in terms of the offer. So I show this so that you all can understand that there's a theory, there's some data, but there's some actual industry examples of IT security convergence happening with some pretty substantial players in the space. So I am going to jump back into my presentation and do the scrolling here so that I don't have to rely on Shannon for that. So let's keep going. Those are the industry examples. And finally, we get to taking a look at the survey itself. So our purpose was to examine the current and planned involvement in different types of IT solutions. We also wanted to understand what the obstacles were to more aggressive adoption and learn what ESA could do to help members in these areas. And Rich will dig in on that with the folks on this call a little bit later. The method was an online survey, just 13 questions. It was fielded to both ESA members and to the Electronic Security Expo registration database. And the only incentive was a copy of the executive summary of this report. We received in total about 133 usable responses, which provides some decent statistical significance for the data. And AE Ventures was the research provider. We worked with ESA to develop the questionnaire and field it and did the tabulation and the reporting that you're hearing today. So first off, and usually the profile of the respondents is kind of a throwaway set of slides, but it's really important here. So you can see on the upper left the job function of the respondents. No surprise here. Mostly management, and 2/3 of it executive management on the response side of things. We skewed in our sample versus the industry as a whole, I think, in terms of the respondents to security integration companies with central stations. You'll also see later when we look at the revenue, annual revenues of these companies, that there's definitely a skew towards the bigger integrators. We really needed to ask this third question in the survey, which came after primary business. We wanted to understand what the original mission of the responding companies was, so that we could see if what we were getting response to was a bunch of IT VARs and systems integrators who might belong to ESA or be on the ESX registration database and be doing security, or whether the companies that responded were security-first companies. And what this slide at the bottom tells us in terms of original mission of the company is the vast majority were security integration companies first. 0% were IT integration companies in terms of their origin, the original mission. And there's some other low voltage categories that folks played in as well. But primarily, we are taking a look at here security integrators and what their play is in the IT space. A little more info on the profile of the respondents. 3/4 were ESA members, a little over a third CSAA members, and you can see some of the other association memberships on the list there. Total company revenue, 51% at $2.5 million or larger. Obviously, back to my earlier point, we did tend to skew to the more well-heeled integration companies in this in the sample, not in the sample, but on the response to this survey. So here we get to the meat of the survey, which was asking the following question: what percentage of your commercial installations will feature this long list of granular IT solutions that we laid out? We asked them about that question currently, and we said, where will you be in 2 years from now? And here's the data that we generated. So most penetrated category is, not surprisingly, structured cabling and wireless connectivity for IT. It might be, it would be less surprising if I saw this on the residential side of things, where we know security integrators strongly moved into structured wiring to work with new home builders in the last decade. But I mean, you're seeing a high percentage of commercial installations, including some sort of network infrastructure. That's, again, structured cabling or wireless connectivity, and this is commercial installations. So 27%, on average, 27% of commercial installations included that feature in 2012 among the survey respondents, and they are projecting that more than a third, 36%, will include that feature in 2014. And then we go down the list from there. Remote monitoring and management of IT networks, not of alarm systems or surveillance, but of IT networks to monitor the network performance, whether there are intrusions, whether there's preventative maintenance that needs to be done. A fifth of the respondents say, not a fifth of the respondents, on average, a fifth of the commercial installations feature that product/service, and going up to 28% in 2014. You see storage devices figure pretty strongly, network security and firewalls, a lot of growth there from 13 to 22%, almost doubling between 2012 and 2014. Data security devices and software, again, strong growth. Online backup, and so on. As we move down to more specialized applications, you see lower rates of penetration in the portfolio of commercial installations of the respondents, but strong growth, doubling in many cases or close to doubling over the course of a couple of years. And this looks at it more globally, what percentage of your commercial installation revenue, so it's not installation and monitoring revenue, it's just the revenues derived from installation, what percentage is attributable to IT solutions like the ones that we just looked at granularly, and you can see the steps up that are happening from a couple of years ago, 2010, where we were at 12% of commercial installation revenues attributable to IT, up to almost a quarter in 2012 is what's being projected, and nearly 40% in 2014. So let's dig in a little bit behind these numbers in terms of, first of all, attitudes regarding IT solutions. So we asked them, to what level do you agree with these following statements? I'll go through this in some detail. Offering information technology products and services is substantially more interesting to our business than it was 3 to 5 years ago. 86% agree, 40% totally agree with that statement. Our company is excited about the prospect of generating recurring revenue through managed services approaches to information technology products and services. And that's something we didn't address in the drivers, but that is a key driver, is IT is increasingly becoming an RMR-based product for VARs as well. There's a whole new class of IT VARs and systems integrators that call themselves managed services providers, and they are focused on a recurring revenue business model. So, and that seems to be translating to the physical security integrator, where we have 83% agreeing that recurring revenue attached to IT is an exciting prospect, and 38% totally agreeing. Our company needs to have an IT offer to be competitive in the commercial market for small and medium-sized clients. 30% totally agree, 44% agree somewhat. This gets back to that question, is the IT VAR and systems integrator stealing market share from the physical security integrator because they have both the IT and the physical security solution? The security guy needs to add the IT offer to be competitive. 30% agree totally, 44% agree somewhat. Developing IT solutions alongside our security offering is essential to the future of our commercial business. 79% agree, 36% totally agree. IT solutions, now we focused on commercial in this survey, but there is an opportunity to sell IT solutions on the residential side of things. We asked, IT solutions can be an important part of our residential business. 21% totally agree, 50% agree somewhat. How do you get there? We looked at, interface versus vector, in terms of the big companies. Here's a question. We are interested in strategic alliances. That's the vector approach with IT VARs and systems integration companies to provide commercial customers more complete solutions. 26% totally agree, 50% agree somewhat. We're interested in merging with or acquiring IT VARs and systems integrators to create a platform for complete solutions. 14% totally agree. You're going to have fewer companies in the acquisitions and mergers market, so it's not surprising to see a lower number there. But you've got 39% agreeing at some level with that idea of merger or acquisition with IT. So I think this is an interesting slide. It's interesting to see the attitudinal numbers matching up with what we saw earlier with the quantitative sort of facts. So we also wanted to ask about, why you might not be moving more aggressively in adopting IT solutions, and we asked that about 5 of the, I think there were 10 to 12 specific categories we had, and we were just limited in the survey questionnaire. We only asked about 5. But I think the story of this slide is that the only thing that seems to be holding physical security integrators back from becoming more aggressive on IT is ignorance, is not knowing enough about what the solutions themselves are, not knowing how to sell and market them. And those are the key obstacles as you look at this slide, almost across the board. In some of these categories, the recurring revenue piece is lacking a little bit. It's interesting to me to see that there is good awareness that things like RMM are recurring revenue generators, when you see only 8% saying lack of recurring revenue associated with that, and the difference between IT, network, and hardware. This is showing that the respondents to the survey have some detailed knowledge of what we're talking about, and they're not just popping answers down on an online survey. And this is a look at which of the vertical markets that they believe there is an opportunity. Not every vertical market is probably ripe for an integrated IT and security offer. They may not have strong IT needs. I know one of the categories we asked about that's not listed here because it didn't rank high was like the house of worship market. So not great IT needs among the typical house of worship, so not a particularly promising area. But you see where they do think that offer could be compelling, and it is in the commercial office building and suite space, so broadly based commercial office sort of applications. Retail figures very highly, industrial and manufacturing, food, restaurant and food service, which is in many ways another kind of retail, and so on as you go down the list. And with that, I was really intrigued by what I saw at the interface and vector sites in terms of this, the retail focus of that, and also to see retail ranking so highly in some of the research. And I just kind of wanted to throw out, for question more than anything else in this survey, a bit of a vision for an integrated offer for the small and medium-sized retailer out there. Retail is an interesting business, and there's a problem or a challenge that many retailers have when they move beyond a single location. And the old adage is, if you're not there in person, the owner-operator, you're not there to watch the cash drawer, if you're not there to really supervise the quality of the operations, that your new locations or your existing location that you can't spend the same time with, they're going to fall apart. And I think that today's technologies, both in security and IT and maybe even in the control space, really provide an answer to that age-old challenge for the retailer, which is you've got video surveillance, and this can all be deployed pretty darn cost-effectively for a retailer these days, but you've got video surveillance for the loss prevention side of things, whether that's watching whether stuff is escaping, watching what's going on in that cash drawer with a tie-in to point-of-sale systems, but you certainly have video from a loss prevention standpoint that can be provided. We know that securing that facility in off hours is also important. You video access and alarms certainly do the trick there, along with monitoring. Point of sale there's a whole bunch of solutions that are available there that I don't think are impenetrable for the average security integrator to get on top of. Inventory control can be important and also has loss prevention connections and can be tied with article surveillance. And I think very interestingly, on the other applications for video, and I wish I had pulled up a slide from a survey we did for CSAA on the percentage of central stations that are providing the more business intelligence applications for video, where analytics can do things like provide analysis on traffic on the store floor, or whether specific end caps and displays are getting traffic, people counting sort of applications, or to use that video surveillance from a customer service standpoint, where there's real-time monitoring as to whether customers in various parts of the store are getting good service, and you can react and send sales associates out on the floor to connect with customers. And this can even be taken as far and as sophisticated as tying in things like facial recognition, which could work for finding known shoplifters that have been in your store and taking action against them. Or it can be about a whale customer that comes into that store and is in the store, and you can appropriately direct sales associates, the right sorts of sales associates, to interface with a whale customer on the floor. So I think it's really interesting, the mix of IT solutions that are for efficiency, the security and loss prevention side of things, and the store performance, employee performance, the customer service aspects that video can provide with appropriate analytics. There's really quite an interesting group of integrated technology benefits that can be offered to retailers. And I didn't even put in here things like control, like the energy management piece is often a big cost factor for retailers, and to have the remote handheld-based control through a smartphone or a tablet to make sure that energy is being conserved at your facility is another value add. This is all within the wheelhouse of a physical security integrator or the IT VAR who wants to get into security and more. So I throw that out as a suite of potential solutions in the retail sector where we know a lot of ESA members play, just for grist, for folks to chew on. And with that, I did want to just throw this open for Q&A on what I've presented thus far, and then you've got my email address here if you have questions after the fact. So any Q&A that you have on this presentation for now, before we turn things over to Rick Sheets to administer a survey with you folks. But who has a question? I'm scrolling in this chat box, Shannon, and I don't know. Okay, let's see. So can you elaborate on how RMM equals additional RMR and what the potential impact could be on our business? Well, the remote monitoring and management, I can never remember whether it's management or monitoring. I think it's monitoring and management. RMM is the acronym in the IT space. It's really administered as a subscription service. So there are connection points, technically IP-based connection points that are attached to the network infrastructure and some of the active components. Again, it's monitoring things from network performance to predictive maintenance to, it could also be a cable modem goes down and you have an IP-enabled power supply that you can boot it on and off and reboot a network. But most IT VARs and managed service providers are offering RMM on a subscription basis. They're bundling it in with the infrastructure sale. So it's a pure RMR source. And everybody in this physical security business knows, that RMR is the goose that lays the golden egg, and this is a way to add additional dollars on the RMR side of things that I think would be recognized in terms of company valuation as well. Can you elaborate on what type of residential IT solutions will become more important and where we should focus? I think preventing data loss, and that is mostly about user error. So how do we help the user not lose tax returns, family photos, 1,500 songs that they paid to download on from iTunes? That data on the home network is increasingly valuable and important. It's kind of priceless in terms of its replaceability. So off-site backup storage on a subscription basis. I do think there are a lot of residential users out there. Think about single-person households that are, I don't mean to discriminate against women, but fewer women know how to reboot a cable modem than men do. So, I mean, there's things just as simple as the network went down from a cable modem standpoint. Can you remotely reboot that cable modem and get the network active again? So I think that there's quality of network operations, certainly data protection, data loss protection are really strong opportunities on the residential side of things. Can you review the specific IT solutions that offer the best opportunities? I would say RMM is top of the list. I just think that data protection and reliability are areas that can be addressed without getting to being like a help desk for commercial clients, where there are a lot of well-developed tools and cloud-based services that lend themselves to recurring revenue models. So that's where I would say security integrators should focus. You know, initially, it can be a fit with your brand promise as a physical security company. If you're securing somebody's network, you're securing somebody's data, you're ensuring the reliability of their network. That fits with what they have in their mind in terms of a security provider. So I think it's a brand fit, and in all of those cases, there's a way to make them recurring revenue driven. And we know everybody needs to focus on that in this business, or loves to focus on that in this business. So are there any other questions, Shannon and team? I don't know whether we open the mic at this point or whether we're strictly going to take chat questions, but I'm open for more questions, or we can turn it over to Rick.
I'll take it from here, John. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As John mentioned earlier, I'm Rick Sheets, VP of Training and Certification for the Electronic Security Association. And my goal today is really to have you guys answer a couple of questions on a poll that you're about to see on your screen here. You should be seeing it now. And just answer a couple of questions so I can see from the people that are on this phone what kind of perspective I can get from each of these training type questions, so that I can figure out what ESA can possibly do in regards to training to help your company be more successful with our IT challenges that we have. You know, as John mentioned, and as all you guys know on the phone, our industry has seen a huge change over the last couple of years, and how our security systems and fire alarm systems communicate to the central station or the remote monitoring station, as well as how access control and CCTV are laying on networks and commercial facilities. And you know, the IT side of it is really where we're headed as an industry from a communications perspective, and as John mentioned, also, you know, from a security perspective. So with you guys answering this polls, it would give us an idea of how you like your training delivered when it comes from an IT perspective, and as well as what you're using now to get this training. You know, does it make sense to hire IT people and train them security, or does it make sense to train your current staff to be security, or does it make sense to do, you know, like Vector did and partner with a security company to do some of that stuff? And there's several different ways to skin this cat, but we just need to kind of understand from our perspective how to give you guys the training that you need. So we're at about a 62% vote on the survey, and we're at about 2 minutes. So if you guys could get through those questions, we'll move on. And just to let you guys know, we can't move to the next question until this poll is over, until this question is answered.
Rick, I think I needed to hand the presentation to you, so now I think it's up. Yeah.
Yeah, I think we have it, John. some of the options, and I'll get into some of the conversations that our education committee has had with the challenge of IT training. And some of the options are, do we integrate IT training with our current offerings so that it is product line specific, meaning do we integrate a section in our electronic access control systems that specifically speaks to IT solutions for access control, and do we integrate a piece into our video systems technology course that relates to IT? Right now there's options to get trained. I'm sure a lot of you guys are relying on your vendors to get product-specific training, but does it make sense to have a IT overview or IT 101 introduction course so that you can train a new sales rep or a new technician, what a router is and how to port forward and how to, manipulate firewalls? And some companies have chosen not to go that route and to lay that on to the customer, and I think that works fine. And to John's point earlier, I think that works fine in the large commercial space where they have a VP of IT or they have an IT department and some people to rely on. It's the small to medium-sized business that doesn't employ that person that's having their internet provider, put the router in their site and walking off, that we're challenged with getting our technicians to be able to install a security system or install a video system into that facility and us be able to set it on the network and use it.
Hey, Rick, it's John. Has there been any discussion in the Education Committee about, logical security, data loss prevention, versus just the network infrastructure, whether that's enabling security or just network infrastructure for its own sake? But it seems to me that securing data is not a far stretch for, again, from the brand promise of a physical security integrator, and there seem to be a lot more small-scale tools to approach the small and medium-sized business person on that front, and I just didn't know whether that idea has been kicked around at all.
John, it's been very preliminary discussions, and we have to look at our need. We do a needs analysis when it comes to training and what our majority members need, and with our majority of members being smaller 1 to 5 companies, that's a large jump for them to hop into that space.
Yeah.
And so for them to jump into that space, it's really a business plan that needs to be written and needs to be thought out, and probably some upfront money to jump into that business. So at this point in time, I would say that piece of IT is pretty low on the Education Committee's radar. Mm-hmm. Not to say that it won't change in time, but right now that's definitely not the focus of the Education Committee. What we are focusing on is going back to the structure and how to put the our 4 disciplines, being access control, CCTV, fire, and security, on a network structure, and how to manipulate that network structure to allow it to communicate properly,
right,
and to be remotely accessed. So, go ahead.
Makes sense.
All right. So what we see right now is, on the first question, we see that 58% of the people on this call are receiving their IT training from vendors, 8% from a training facilitator, and 42% to other. And there were 92% of people who voted on that. So I appreciate that. It gives me a little bit of a picture of where we are on that. So we'll move to the next poll and the next question. Going on to the second poll, what I'm asking here is again, do you like to see a product line specific, being as I mentioned earlier, as it pertains to access control or CCTV, or do you see it as an overview, an IT overview? This is a router. Here's how you'd enter this router to do port forwarding, and an overview and an overall range of training to your technicians and to your sales reps on how to explain it to a customer. You know, we all know a successful installation and a happy customer starts in the sales process with the expectations being set by that sales rep. And I find that if that sales rep sets the expectations very high or does not explain very clearly, especially in the SBM, small and medium-sized business space, they don't explain to a business owner who may not be very IT savvy exactly what has to take place to put their DVR on the network. A lot of times you end up with an unsatisfied customer when you walk away because they weren't able to get you what you needed to set that router up or set their network up to have the remote access to the DVR. And I'm sure you guys have experienced that. We've had 83% people have voted on this, and 60% would like to see that product line specific, and 60% would like to see it overall IT training. So we're pretty split there, so it's very interesting to see. So we'll move on to the third question, and what I want to understand is your pain point for IT solutions in your company. Is it the setup and configuration of the router that I mentioned earlier? Is it customer understandings? Is it tech training? Is it sales training? And I put all of the above in here because I know that all of those could be pain points, but what is the most pain point for you? Where would you see the most relief in your company if you had proper training for either how to explain it to a customer or how to set up the network? Would it be better done on the sales side with a high-level overview, or on the tech side and getting into a little more detail and technical part of the IT connections? And then after this poll, we are going to unmute all of you guys. So if you have any background noise, please make sure you put your phone on mute. But I'd like to hear from some of the participants on what you would like to see from ESA to assist in your training and how we could better support you guys from the IT perspective. We're currently starting to unmute, so if you hear some background noise, you'll know what that's from.
Could be a new sim.
What's that, John?
This could be a new symphony, some sort of contemporary symphony. Some interesting sounds on this one.
All right, so we see that 44% would say the setup and configuration would be the issue. 33% was customer understandings, 22% was tech training, 44% was sales training, and 44% was all of the above. With that being said, I'm going to open the mics up for you guys to add any comments, and feel free to ask John or myself any questions. But what I specifically would like to get out of you is what you'd like to see from ESA from a training perspective. Is there any questions? If there aren't any questions, John, I'll turn it back over to you for closing comments.
Thanks, Rick. So we hope you found this informative content. I just want to remind everyone that a recording of the webinar and a copy of the PowerPoint presentation will be available at esaweb.org.